We'd heard the stories about this place long before we arrived. A powerful landscape that shapes its own weather.
The gusts are pretty powerful. That wind just starts accelerating around the mountains. The mountains get bigger. They extend up to about 2,000 meters.
Anchorages that vanish beneath sheer granite walls.
Huge landslide occurred here where half the mountain just dropped suddenly into the inlet.
A place that behaves in mysterious and unpredictable ways.
Keen to go check it all out, but still feeling kind of a little uneasy and nervous about what we're going to find up there.
We're venturing deep inland through one of the coast's longest fjords. We've just left the protection of the only sheltered anchorage after a pretty demanding first leg of the journey.
We are just leaving Glendale Cove this morning. Today we're heading north into the twisty-turny north-south section of Knight Inlet.
Winding over 100 kilometers through rugged mountains, this voyage will take several days. Today, we're pushing farther into its upper reaches, where the scenery becomes even more spectacular and the conditions even less predictable.
It's pretty likely that once we get up into this north-south section of Knight Inlet, it's going to be pretty uncomfortable up there. We're not quite sure how much protection you actually really get in some of these bays, and it's been blowing pretty consistently up there. So we're a little nervous and a little apprehensive about going up, because if we can't find a really good place to anchor that's actually comfortable, we're either going to be like really dog-tired the next day from rocking around all night, washed up onto the shore, worst case scenario, or we're going to have to turn around and try to motor out against the wind and the fetch and everything to try to get back to Glendale, which could take hours or possibly even overnight. So kind of keen to go check it all out, but still feeling kind of a little uneasy and nervous about what we're going to find up there.
With all of its challenges, few people venture this far into the inlet. It's a long way in, and you have to make it all the way back out against the prevailing wind and swell. Despite our apprehension, we left the shelter behind and pointed the bow deeper into the mountains.
We're approaching the first point in the bend here on the north-south leg of Knight Inlet. Just jibed the head sail.
This place has a well-earned reputation for powerful and unpredictable winds, sending sudden gusts spilling down from the mountains. So you kind of have to be ready for anything.
We've been experiencing this really strange convergence of wind in conjunction with the pressure systems that drive the northwesterlies, as well as the diurnal heating that then sucks more air up into the mountains. You really see a lot of accelerating and diverging and converging wind as it wraps around all of the S-bends and the chicanes and the doglegs traveling in the north-south direction. There's a lot of cross valleys as well, so we're anticipating that we'll get wind coming from the main inflow direction, but then also potentially crosswinds from either direction as we're progressing up the inlet.
As much as we thought we understood about sailing this coast, Knight Inlet would certainly test all of it. The forces at work here behave in mysterious ways. Here, the mountains shape everything, funneling the wind through narrow valleys, swallowing VHF and cell signal, and leaving our depth sounder searching for the bottom. And there were other reasons we felt uneasy.
Heard a story recently from a local guy. Huge landslide occurred here where half the mountain just dropped suddenly into the inlet. There used to be a First Nations village over here on Qualate Creek that when this landslide happened, it produced a wave so big that it went directly across the inlet and washed out the entire village and destroyed it.
Entire mountainsides have sheared away into the sea. While events like this are rare, they're not just ancient history. Just months after our own journey through Alaska, a massive landslide in Tracy Arm generated a tsunami within the fjord. Another reminder of the immense forces still shaping these landscapes.
Pretty nuts to think that you could have like a mini tsunami up here in the inlet.
For breakfast or lunch, brunch, got some fresh crab cakes with a garlic aioli and capers, and hopefully it tastes yummy.
Looks really good.
Well, that's a bit of a sad outcome, isn't it?
I'm really sorry and sad that that happened. Oh, we just got hit with some crazy gusts bouncing around off the mountains and kind of jibed the head sail and beeped the boat right over, and things went flying, and the water bottle knocked all the food onto the floor. Now we had to wrangle with the sails for a second, and now we get to have a dog's breakfast.
The wind was definitely intensifying, the inlet reminding us this was not going to be a leisurely cruise.
Definitely spicy.
Yeah. It's times like these when you wish you had a wind measuring thing, so we could actually know how much wind we're sailing in and what the heck it's actually doing. Definitely like 20 knots at least, but it could be more than that. The gusts are pretty powerful, and we're just flying along way too fast for comfort.
Funneling between the steep cliffs, the wind swept us farther into the fjord. There was no turning back now, so we hunkered down for whatever it had in store.
But we're just approaching the edge of Cathedral Point here, so I'm hoping we can duck around it quickly and just kind of get out a bit of the blast of the winds. The sea state is definitely a little bit less closer to shore here, which is much more comfortable, because we were really out and swinging around in it there for a sec.
As the wind continued to build, so did the scale of the landscape around us. Seeking reprieve from the wind, we made our way towards a feature marked on our guide as a possible anchorage.
It's just beautiful here. It's like being in a cathedral of a forest. It just comes straight up into the sky. Clouds still moving about.
This impressive ridgeline, marked on the charts as Spire Peaks, had caught our attention long before we arrived. We'd heard stories of boats tying up in here, so naturally we had to go in and check it out for ourselves. The cliffs here are impossibly steep, plunging straight into the water. There'd be little chance of our anchor finding the bottom, but we scouted around anyways. We've tied up in cuts like this before using a fisherman-style mooring, and although that seemed possible here, the slide debris had us feeling uneasy. But the setting here definitely took our breath away. We decided to press on, hoping we'd find better shelter ahead. Fortunately, there was another possibility just around the bend.
Well, we are coming into Anawati Point here, about halfway up Knight's Inlet. It's been a pretty spicy ride up, to be honest. Those inflows really built up, and at some points we had quite a nice following sea and we're quite overpowered. Well, as we turn the corner here, we're completely protected again from the wind. It's fairly protected from the swell. It'll still be a little rocky and rolly in here. It's pretty steep, deep too. I believe it's a fairly rocky bottom, and we'll likely have to stern tie, but it'll be your classic fjordal style anchoring where we drop in 20, 30 meters, and then we have that like less than 2-to-1 scope and stern tide. Kind of takes a little bit here to set up, but I think we're adequately protected in here. And I mean, that's really the main thing, is to try to get out of the inflows here. So stand by. So we dropped in about 30 meters or about 100 feet. It's pretty deep down there. Holding is apparently quite rocky, so we've probably just wedged the anchor, which is really nice. It's not coming anywhere as long as we stay perfectly in alignment with it. That is why we have set up the stern line. The stern line is holding us always in the correct alignment so that we can just remain with a constant pressure sitting on the anchor. We're pretty protected here, can't feel too much of the swell wrapping around. You get the occasional gusts that seems to be like wrapping around, back eddying a little bit, but they're very short-lived.
Feeling relieved to have you into secured and out of the wind, we wandered ashore to take in the view. Our boats tiny beneath the towering mountains. We were grateful to have our friends on Magic Carpet with us for this part of the journey, and we threw together a dinner with whatever fresh ingredients we all had on board.
Ready here.
Okay. Sure.
Thank you, everyone.
2 minutes.
We left the anchorage. We were pretty grumpy because we hadn't slept. We're like going 6 knots, and he's like,
The contrast was striking. Just a few hours earlier, in howling winds and dark skies, the mountains had felt imposing. Now, around the warmth of the fire, we were able to take it all in. The landscape hadn't changed. It was still enormous, powerful, and completely indifferent to our presence. But for a brief moment, we were able to see a softer side. It was completely calm overnight, and we awoke to still water, the sounds of birdsong, and the roar of the water cascading down the mountainside. It was as peaceful as a morning could be. But there was an evil force lurking outside.
They're everywhere, they're huge, they live in British Columbia in the summer and they only exist when there's no wind. Horseflies. Go away, guys. We've just been trying to slaughter them non-stop. So we got to get out of here. So Allison's going to go deal with the stern line. I'm going to haul in the hook a little bit so that we don't swing into shore. And hopefully we can get out of here before these horseflies carry us off to their lair. Let's get going.
We understood the ways of the inlet enough by now and wasted no time tucking to reefs in the mainsail. Having made it this far, we were determined to make it to its upper reaches. So we continued on up the inlet, once again feeling uncertain about the strengthening winds and limited anchoring options towards its headwaters.
The headwaters of the inlet are really precarious and there's lots of shifting shoals up there from all the glacial runoff and the sediment. It shallows very, very rapidly. And then you're also exposed to all of the fetch. So you can't really anchor at the head so much, but there is one or two places further up in the north-south section of the inlet that are possibly anchorable, although they wouldn't be considered to be like bomb-proof anchorages. They're just a place that you can tie up if the conditions are fair enough.
We weren't sure what constituted fair conditions up here. It's a place unlike anywhere we'd sailed before. Even the swell was behaving strangely, with wind-driven waves colliding with the outflow of the glacial rivers ahead. It felt less like sailing in an inlet and more like moving upriver. And there were hazards floating downstream.
Well, that's inlet sailing for you. You never know quite what you're going to get. Always leaves you guessing. That is part of the adventure. You can sort of hypothesize and make some predictions based on experience and weather forecasts, but you never really know until you get up here. That is definitely the adventure of it.
Our final hope for anchoring lay in the estuary in the next valley. There, thousands of years of glacial sediment carried down by the river should be enough for an anchor to hold. We just hoped it would also provide shelter from the wind and the swell.
Another kind of deep anchorage, stern tying. You know the drill by now.
Drawn ever farther inland by the afternoon inflows, the headwaters were finally within sight.
The swell is still coming in quite on the beam here, coming out of Knight Inlet, and from the strong inflows today, it's probably going to go for pretty well all night, I'd say, before it dissipates. So we just slipped the stern line here. We're going to move the stern line around to the bow so that Uinta can swing in the swell a little bit more comfortably rather than sitting beam on all the time. And we're just going to pull our stern line into our bow just to hold tension on the anchor in the correct way to keep us held on the upslope here. Our anchor is straight out this way and our stern line is straight out that way. As I let the anchor rode out now, I can pull stern line back in and that'll shift the boat back further towards shore and then more out of the main part of the swell. And it'll also improve our scope and angle, which is less of a concern with the steep upslope, but you know. We've gotten onto our main part of the line, which is good. That's like 2 to 1 now because we dropped in 100 feet. So it's better.
After some adjusting, we had the boat sitting more comfortably in the swell. And for the first time all day, it felt like we could stop battling the elements and simply enjoy where we were.
Cheers.
Knight Inlet had certainly left its mark on us, dazzled us with its beauty, humbled us with its scale, and kept us guessing around every turn. There was so much more here to discover. a vast wilderness that stretched far beyond what we could see on this voyage. But we had seen enough to understand the nature of this place, and we knew better than to linger too long. As always, thank you so much for watching and for joining us on these adventures. And to our Patreon crew, thank you for your continued support in making these films possible. As a small independent channel, contributions like yours give us the time and resources to create the films we love sharing with all of you. We truly couldn't do it without you, and we are very, very grateful. We'll see you in the next one. Cheers.